Anthony Grasso here, providing you financial news you can use. It seems like we hit a major roadblock in the negotiations today, so I'm going to give you your stimulus check update as of December 19th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Okay, let's get right into it. There's a lot of news coming out today, and a lot's coming from Washington Post, who's put this all together, so let's get right into it. So lawmakers right now have hit a major roadblock over the GOP plan to limit the Federal Reserve. So that's one of the major sticking points now is what the GOP wants, how the GOP wants to limit the Federal Reserve. It's imperiling the weekend deal for emergency relief package. Now, both Democrats and Republicans say an issue over the Federal Reserve's authority remains a significant hurdle. Senator Patrick Toomey, Republican of Pennsylvania, grievance with the COVID relief bill, said Dems are trying to politicize the Fed. Now, Chuck Schumer, on the other hand, accuses Toomey of holding up COVID relief funding in the 11th hour demands. Toomey wants to rein in the nation's central bank, had already divided lawmakers over the last several days. But now the impasse appeared to grow significantly wider on Saturday today as congressional leadership and rank and file senators on both sides of the aisle dug in over the issue, imperiling prospects of a deal before Monday. So Toomey, which is a conservative lawmaker on the Senate's Bank and Finance Committee, has demanded provisions to include in the COVID relief package that would curb the ability of the Fed to restart emergency lending programs for localities and small businesses. Now, Senate Majority Leader Mitch Mcconnell told Senate Republicans on a private call Saturday afternoon that the party should stick by Toomey's plan. So McConnell's basically putting his feet in the ground right now, saying, "Well, we're going to go after this. We're going to stick with Toomey's plan." And that's now a monkey wrench in the whole shebang. So Senator Patrick Toomey hit the Senate floor today with a list of grievances on the $900 billion package, the latest holdup right now in Congress, passing the bill by tomorrow. And Toomey said that we've never asked the Fed to engage in fiscal policy or social policy or to allocate credit based on political standing. Now, Toomey has requested that language be added to the latest bill that would ensure termination of the 3 federal lending programs established back in March when the CARES Act was passed to help credit markets function during the massive U.S. economic shutdowns. Now, the CARES Act created a corporate bond credit facility along with municipal and mainstream lending programs that were originally intended to expire December 31st, but the Democrats want to extend that all the way till the end of next year, to the end of 2021. Toomey argued Saturday that extending the programs would be superfluous because they would went underutilized after private credit markets quickly resumed normal operations. He added that the corporate credit facility was never used at all. I mean, Toomey has a great point. These are programs that were never used, but now it's becoming a politicized sticking point with the negotiations. But Democrats have said Toomey's language, which would prevent the credit lending programs from being restarted or duplicated without congressional consent, would undermine the Federal Reserve's emergency lending authority. Even though those facilities were never used, they still have access to them if they wanted to actually use them in 2021. Now, the Pennsylvania senator said his legislation was not an attempt to curtail the Biden administration, but rather as a preventive measure. It would completely politicize the Fed. It would be the end of the independence of the Fed, Toomey said on the Senate floor today. He argued that extending the emergency spending authority would allow the Federal Reserve to become an extension of the administration and to implement fiscal policies through lending stipulations such as climate policy-based conditions. So Toomey is arguing that the Democrats will probably politicize these programs and use them for other things than what they were intended for, as he just said, the climate policy-based conditions. Now, that remains to be seen. Now, the fiscal and social policy is the rightful realm of the people who are accountable to the American people, and that's us, the Congress, Toomey also added. But Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer pushed back, calling them the 11th hour demands, the only significant hurdle to completing an agreement, and saying that Republicans need to make a decision, he said. He also went on to say, what's he proposing is not about COVID or helping the American people, Schumer said. It's about tying the hands of the next Treasury Secretary and the next Fed Chairman in a true emergency. Everybody needs to make a decision about whether we're going to pass this much needed relief or not, and an 11th hour demand, and whether they are worth holding up the entire bill, he added. Now, So these are they're going back and forth on this. Now it's like this major monkey wrench. So we had these small issues that I'm going to go later on in the video. I'm going to go over what the small issues are, but it seems like this has become a major hurdle. As all of this is going on, the senators are still in the nation's capital right now, as Congress works to approve the funding for the long-awaited coronavirus relief package, and they want to do it by Sunday afternoon, by tomorrow afternoon at 1 p.m. So we have less than 24 hours away from a vote, from them wanting to vote on it. Now, this intensifying dispute is threatening to derail all the delicate negotiations for the nearly $1 trillion relief package. But House Speaker Nancy Pelosi on Saturday called the dispute over Toomey's proposal the big thing holding back an agreement. Asked about the latest in negotiations, Senator Durbin, the number 2 ranking Senate Democrat, said, Toomey. Okay, so that's where we're at with that. So where does it stand right now? Well, congressional leaders had given themselves until Sunday midnight to close out talks. President Trump Friday signed that 2-day spending bill to keep the government funding till midnight Sunday. If no deal is reached on the stimulus package, lawmakers would have to pass another temporary measure before Monday. Otherwise, parts of the federal government would shut down as of midnight Sunday. So we might still have another possible government shutdown or a stopgap bill till Wednesday. And now it's an ominous sign for relief talks. Rank and file senators in both parties, both the Democrats and Republicans, signaled they're unwilling to move forward if they did not get their way over the Toomey proposal. So it seems like the Democrats have put their feet in the sand. The Republicans have put their feet in the sand, and we just need to move forward. We need to get through this. And Senator Elizabeth Warren today denounced the Toomey plan and said that Democrats should stay firm to resist the changes. And Senator Angus King, an independent of Maine, a moderate who caucuses with the Democrats, said such an idea would cripple the next administration's ability to deal with the recession. Even though these are facilities that were never used, both Democrats and Republicans are politicizing this topic, and they're both putting their feet in the ground. On the Republican side, Senator Tom Cotton, a Republican for Arkansas, tweeted that Democrats were seeking to slush fund for their political cronies. So, as I said before, Republicans are worried that they're going to use this funds for other things like climate change issues and whatnot. Cotton added that Toomey's position is in fact the position of the Republican Senate Conference. Senator John Neely of Kennedy, Republican Louisiana, a member of the Senate Banking Committee, told reporters Democrats were trying to use the central bank's authorities as a backdoor to do what they couldn't do through the front door. So they're basically like, okay, well, let's use the Fed policy and do other things with it. So they're politicizing it for both angles. Kennedy added of Republicans' approach to the issue, I think we ought to stand firm. So not only Mitch McConnell, but also Kennedy says we need to stick firm on this dispute. Now, as the dispute threatened to turn into a partisan inferno this afternoon, senators gathered on the floor during a confirmation vote and began to directly work out the dispute over days of sputtering staff-level talks. Toomey and Senator Mark Warner, a Democrat of Virginia, both senior members of the Senate Banking Committee, sat facing each other, flanked by a bunch of their aides on either side. And after about 10 minutes of, I would say, an animated discussion, several of the senators retreated to the office of Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, leaving afterward after about an half an hour. Toomey said after that meeting, I think we should be able to get a deal done. So it seems like Toomey and Chuck Schumer just possibly made a deal, maybe? Well, let's see what happens. But another participant, Mitt Romney of Utah, who was sought a compromise, sounded more downbeat, telling reporters, I can't predict what the result is going to be. I don't know whether they're going to be able to bridge the divide or not. So you got Mitt Romney saying, well, I came out of the same meeting and I don't have Toomey's view on we're actually going to work together hand in hand. Let's hold hands and get a deal passed. So now tonight on a call Saturday evening, just a couple hours ago with Democratic senators, Schumer indicated that Toomey said he was willing to modify his proposal to reach a compromise and that talks would continue into the night, according to two people on the call. So basically, he says that Toomey is now willing to work with Schumer to modify just some of the language. So that's a good sign. So this might be a sticking point, but tomorrow morning we'll probably find out what came out of those talks late tonight. So he said if an agreement was reached late Saturday, the Senate could vote as early as Sunday on the final deal, though others have cast doubt on that bill can be written and passed by the House that quickly. What that means is it's going to be a 600-page bill, and you're only going to have a couple hours to review it and then sign off on it. That's extremely quick. I can't read 600 pages in 2 hours. I don't know about you. McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, has said lawmakers will not leave Washington for the holidays until a deal is done. And on Friday night, he expressed optimism that a deal would get done. But now on Saturday, multiple lawmakers and aides on Capitol Hill who were not authorized to speak because everybody speaks anonymously and they can't put their name out there, conceded that it was hard to imagine a swift resolution to the stalemate over the Federal Reserve. So even though there's good talks coming out of the meetings between Toomey and Chuck Schumer, there's a lot of other people saying this might be a huge sticking point. And then now there's a few other lingering issues, and let's go over those. They include the eligibility for small businesses relief and how to structure unemployment aid. And initially was 16 weeks, and then went to 10 weeks. And is it going to be 10 weeks? Is it going to be 12 to 13 weeks? Right now it's stuck at 10. And the criteria for sending out a $600 per person stimulus check. My thought on the criteria, it's probably going to mirror the CARES Act. Pelosi told House Democrats on a call Saturday that lawmakers remain divided over the amount of money necessary for food assistance as well. I went over that in a couple of videos. They cut the food assistance staff from $26 billion to $13 billion. I was like, why? Well, why did they cut it from there? Why didn't they find somewhere else to cut it from? So Pelosi said exactly what I was saying in my previous videos, that cutting it in half is iffy. However, many congressional aides close to the talk expressed optimism that these issues could be addressed fairly quickly if the dispute over the Fed is resolved. So they're basically saying number one issue that they're working out tonight is the Fed. So they fix the Fed, they'll be able to fix these other small issues. Now, Senator John Thune, the number 2 ranking Republican senator, said Saturday that the probability of a more likely scenario is that the negotiations stretch until Monday. Now, I gave it last video a 50-50 chance of this happening. With this Fed issue, I'm going to give it an 80% chance it doesn't pass tomorrow, just because of the lingering Fed issue. Even though there's some good talks going on, it's unresolved right now. Since it's unresolved and they're sticking their feet in the sand, I say I agree with Thune's position on that. But he also stated, but I think we're in the home stretch. We're on the glide path. And everybody's a pilot. The glide path is right before landing. So Thune said, I think we're going to get this done and help out the American people. I agree with you. Still, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin told Senate Republicans at a 1 p.m. call today that Toomey's demands had not been resolved. So as of 1 p.m. they weren't resolved, but talks have been going on tonight. So we have been made progress with that sticking point. McConnell also told Senate Republicans on a call that GOP needed to support Toomey's efforts. So I think we need, as he said, I think we need to stick with where we are, McConnell said, according to the 2 people familiar with the call that was going on. So if Toomey can get work with Chuck with the language, with a modified language, and if Toomey feels confident with it, then we can move forward. The 2 sides were at odds over whether the Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell had taken sides in the dispute. In morning remarks on the Senate floor, Schumer said Powell opposed the proposed changes, but later in the day, Toomey challenged that assertion and said, I would challenge anyone to find a statement in the public record that he has made in criticism of this. He said he's very well aware of what's going on. But by Saturday night, tonight, just a couple hours ago, the central bank had not given a public response to the Republican proposal. But in November, the Fed stated it would prefer that the full suite of emergency facilities established during the coronavirus pandemic continue to serve their important role as a backstop for our still strained and vulnerable economy. So the Fed basically said, we would like these programs to extend in 2021. They said that back in November. Now, Republicans say that the Fed's programs initially funded with the $500 billion congressional appropriations under the March relief bill, CARES Act, were of marginal utility earlier in the pandemic and were no longer necessary in any case. And we just discussed that before, because they weren't really used. So if they're not really used, why keep them going on in 2021? Good argument. Democrats have argued that Toomey proposal represents an unusual political intervention into the independence of the Federal Reserve, limiting emergency lending powers as possessed since 1932. Well, that remains to be seen. It's no surprise that Republicans are drawing a line in the sand over their ability to sabotage the economy and tie the Biden administration's hands, and that came from Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon, the ranking Democrat on the Finance Committee, said in a statement. Now, Democrats have signaled they might be willing to accept language that restricts the use of Treasury funds appropriated under the CARES Act, but not language that would restrict the Fed from doing similar lending in its own assets. So that's where Chuck Schumer right now and Toomey are basically trying to get together with the language. So we'll see what happens. Tomorrow morning will be the update on that one. House Majority Leader Steny Hoyle, Democrat of Maryland, said Friday, "I think we could go with one part and not the other, and that's the deal I think we ought to make." That's a good sign. Hoyle told House members Friday not to expend votes until 1 p.m. Sunday at the earliest, just 11 hours before the next shutdown deadline. Likely to run, now this bill is going to likely run 600 pages. It's not only expected to carry the $900 billion COVID relief deal, but the $1.4 trillion in year-long appropriations for the federal agencies. So that's the funding the government for the next 9-10 months or next year. The extension of tens of billions of dollars in expiring tax breaks, a bipartisan energy bill, a long delayed bipartisan solution to surprise medical billing. Now, surprise medical billing is like, hey, if you get injured and you go to the hospital, you don't know what your bill's going to be. Well, they're fixing that, and that was a bipartisan solution, so that's a good thing. And I'll discuss that into later on in another video. And dozens of other potential add-ons, the vast corps of lobbyists and congressional aides are hoping to include in the last legislation vehicle of 2020, the last congressional session of 2020. Now, lawmakers will be asked to vote on a broad piece of legislation, and they will only have a couple hours to review it. That's why I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow. I think there's going to be senators and congressmen that are going to say, "I need time to review this. Let's take it overnight, and let's meet in the morning, and then we can vote on it." So that's where we stand today. So I give it 80% chance that it's going to we're going to pass a deal by tomorrow. I give it 20%. 80% that we're not, and 20% that we are. That's my only opinion. I would like to know your opinion on where do you think this stands. Do you think we're going to get a deal by tomorrow night, or do you think there's going to be another stopgap bill? Please leave a comment down below, and if you like this video, smash that like button down below and subscribe. And if you like financial news you can use, you just click that bobblehead. That's me. You can slash that, subscribe to me, and I'll be with the next video tomorrow, next update tomorrow. Ciao.